Maria Sanchez had learned to survive on silence. Behind the steel doors of Palm Beach County Correctional Facility, where women cried at night and bartered dignity for safety, Maria kept her head low and her heart guarded. She was 29, a mother of two, sentenced to 4 years for a nonviolent burglary that spiraled out of control. But inside these walls, her real sentence was a time she spent under the watchful eyes of correctional officer Eugene Coleman. He was everything prison power often looked like: clean-shaven, calm-voiced, always precise. Other inmates called him Mr. Smooth behind his back, but Maria saw something else: control wrapped in courtesy. Their first encounter was forgettable, a passing glance during laundry duty. But over time, Eugene found excuses to check her wing more often. He complimented her behavior in front of other guards, transferred her to a quieter block, and brought small privileges that didn't raise red flags but meant everything in a place that punished comfort. "I see how hard you're trying," he told her once, handing her an extra pillow after lights out. "You deserve better than this." His smile was gentle, his tone like honey, and Maria, lonely and tired, started to soften. He waited, carefully, a touch on her shoulder during kitchen shift. A few minutes alone in the infirmary after she twisted her ankle. Then came the late-night call to his office under the guise of a discussion of early release options. Maria walked into the small administrative room, wary but hopeful. He closed the door behind her. "You ever think about second chances?" he asked, his voice low. "All the time," she replied. "I can help you. I know how the system works. But I need to know I can trust you." His meaning became clearer each night, and Maria, weighing her options, made a decision women behind bars too often had to make. It wasn't love. It wasn't desire. It was survival, quiet and transactional, masked in nervous laughter and a shared secret. Weeks passed, then months. By the time Maria missed her second period, she knew the truth. Her hands trembled when she stole a moment alone in the infirmary and stole a test. When 2 pink lines appeared, everything collapsed. She sat on the cold floor of the stall, staring at the result. She whispered to herself, "No, not like this." Dr. Sharon Mitchell was the prison's chief medical officer and one of the few staff members Maria trusted. She was strict, never warm, but she didn't look at the inmates like they were garbage. Maria approached her in the clinic a day later, eyes wide with fear. "I need to talk to you. Alone." When Maria finally admitted the pregnancy and that the father was a staff member, Sharon froze. Her training kicked in before her emotion did. "Do you know who it is?" she asked, already suspecting. Maria looked down. "Officer Coleman." There was silence. Sharon leaned back in her chair, heart pounding. "Maria, do you understand how serious this is?" "I do, but I didn't ask for this." Sharon nodded. "We need to report it to the administration, to the Justice Board." Maria's breath caught. "No, please." He said if I told anyone, he'd ruin my life, plant things in my cell, cancel my release. That's retaliation, Maria. It's a crime. It's his word against mine. You're pregnant. That's evidence. Maria looked away. He said I seduced him, that I used my feminine wiles, that no one would believe a convict. Sharon hesitated. She had worked here for 12 years. She'd seen complaints vanish. Guards rotated instead of fired. But this was different. "I'll help you," she said softly. "We'll do this together. But we have to move fast." They planned to approach the Prisoner Rights Commission first, bypassing the warden. The date was set for Monday morning. 3 days. Maria spent the weekend avoiding Coleman. But she saw him on Friday night, waiting for her near the infirmary after dinner. She tried to walk past him. He grabbed her arm gently, but firmly. "We need to talk," he said, dragging her into a quiet corridor. "You need to let go of me. I gave you everything, Maria, and this is how you repay me. I didn't ask for any of it." He stepped closer. "You're ruining my life." She pulled away. "You ruined mine first." His expression changed. "What did you tell Dr. Mitchell?" "Nothing. You better keep it that way. I'm meeting the judge Monday." His eyes darkened. "Then Monday will be your last day of freedom." By the end of January, lockdown protocols at Palm Beach County Correctional had shifted from inconvenience to quiet chaos. Staff rotations were erratic. Supervisors disappeared for personal leave with no explanation. Prisoners whispered through vent shafts and meal slots, weaving half-truths into conspiracy. But no one dared to say aloud what they feared. Something dark was festering beneath the surface, and it was about to erupt. Maria Sanchez had stopped counting the days. Her release, one circled in red ink on a contraband calendar, now felt like a sick joke. The future had changed. She wasn't just serving time anymore. She was surviving something far more dangerous. And growing inside her was the only truth she couldn't hide. 3 pregnancy tests, all stolen from the infirmary, all positive. She flushed the wrappers and stared at the metal sink, the weight of the secret coiling in her chest. She hadn't told anyone, not even Sharon, the prison's medical officer who'd once looked at her like more than just an inmate ID number. Maria couldn't risk it, not yet, but someone already knew. That someone was Eugene Coleman, senior supervisor, decorated, married, father of 2, and the man who had pulled Maria into his office 6 weeks earlier and offered her a job at the facility garage when she got out, if she just played along. At first, it was favors, letting her skip kitchen duty, smoothing her disciplinary records. Then came the gifts, peanut M&Ms, conditioner, a used romance novel. Harmless tokens, until they weren't. The first time he locked the door. "You know how hard it is to trust someone in here?" he had whispered, brushing her wrist like it was just a touch. "But I trust you, Maria." She hadn't screamed. She hadn't fought. That's what haunted her. It wasn't consent. It was surrender. The power dynamic wasn't a crack in the wall. It was the wall. There was nowhere to run. Now, every time she saw him in the hallway, clipboard in hand, eyes grazing her with quiet menace, her stomach twisted. And now, pregnant. At the medical station, Sharon Mitchell reviewed blood work on her tablet, her eyebrows furrowing. "Maria," she said slowly, "can I ask you something off the record?" Maria stiffened on the cot. "I've been seeing changes in your vitals. Hormones, your HCG levels. Are you pregnant?" Maria hesitated, then nodded once. "Who?" Sharon's voice wasn't judgmental, just careful. Maria's eyes welled up. "I can't say." "Maria?" "I can't, Sharon. He's in here. Every day." Sharon said nothing for a long time. She reached into the drawer, handed Maria a prenatal vitamin, and scribbled in her notepad. "This doesn't leave this room," she said quietly, "but you can't hide it forever." Maria bit her lip. "I'm scared." "You should be." That night, in C Wing, whispers slithered between bunks like smoke. Someone had seen Maria escorted alone into the admin wing again. Another claimed to have overheard Coleman call her sweetheart. In prison, secrets are currency, and Maria was going broke. The next morning, someone slid a folded note into her laundry pile. "You're not the only one." No signature, just fear. Maria showed Sharon the note. She didn't speak, just handed it over and watched Sharon's face shift. "How many others?" Sharon whispered. Maria shook her head. "I don't know, but this doesn't feel new." Sharon made a decision that would change everything. She scheduled Maria for an extended medical observation, a covert excuse to pull her from general population and shield her from Coleman. But Coleman noticed. He confronted Sharon in the hallway, smiling with his mouth but not his eyes. "You pulling Sanchez for a physical or for therapy?" Sharon didn't flinch. "Prenatal care." His smile froze. "That's privileged information." "Not when the father's staff." He leaned in closer. "Be careful who you threaten. This place eats whistleblowers alive." "I'm not afraid of you," Sharon replied, even as her heart pounded. "Then you're stupid." The next day, Sharon made a phone call she had rehearsed for nights. Judge Melissa White, head of the County Inmate Advocacy Council. "I need to meet with you," she said. "There's been a violation of power. Sexual coercion. The victim is pregnant, and the man responsible is trying to silence her." Judge White agreed to meet Monday morning. But Monday was 5 days away. Maria spent those days in a windowless holding unit. Her meals brought in silence, the air too thick with tension to breathe. On Friday afternoon, Coleman found her. He entered without knocking. "I gave you everything," he said quietly. "And this is how you thank me?" Maria's heart thumped. "I didn't tell," she whispered. "But you will," he said, stepping closer. "You think you're smarter than me? I run this place. I could say you assaulted me, and you'd be in solitary for 6 months. Maria stood. "I'm not afraid of you anymore." Coleman's hand twitched. "You should be." Before he left, he leaned in. "Monday," he said softly. "Let's hope you don't live to see it." That night, Maria didn't sleep. She lay in the dim light, one hand on her belly, the other gripping a dull pencil like a weapon. She had been many things, an addict, a thief, a prisoner. But she wouldn't be a victim again. And if she died, someone would know who killed her. Monday morning arrived thick with humidity and dread. The fluorescent lights in the administrative wing buzzed overhead like warning signs. Maria Sanchez sat in a conference room, flanked by Sharon Mitchell on one side, and a silence so tense it felt like breathing might shatter it. At 9:45 a.m., Judge Melissa White entered with the authority of a woman who had seen too many systems fail and was tired of watching people die quietly inside them. Her suit was crisp, her notepad already open, her pen poised. "Miss Sanchez, Miss Mitchell, thank you for coming." For the next 40 minutes, Maria spoke like a wound that had finally split open. She recounted every secret meeting, every time she was touched without permission, every favor disguised as kindness, every threat disguised as generosity. Judge White didn't interrupt. She listened. She wrote. She asked only one question. Were there witnesses? Maria hesitated. Other inmates saw the gifts. The way he looked at me. On Friday, he threatened me. And Miss Mitchell. Sharon nodded. He came to me with veiled threats after I contacted your office. Said we could resolve this internally. Judge White closed her notebook. "I'm initiating a formal investigation. Effective immediately, Eugene Coleman is suspended pending inquiry." Just as she finished speaking, the conference room door burst open. Ralph Harrison, the head of the facility, strode in, red-faced and breathless. "Judge White, I must object. This is an internal matter." "This is a closed hearing," the judge replied coolly. "You're out of line." But Harrison wasn't backing down. He dropped a folder onto the table with a dramatic thump. "Before you ruin a man's career, you should know who you're dealing with. Coleman is a model employee. Inmate Sanchez, on the other hand, has a record of making false accusations." Maria's blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" she asked. Harrison opened the folder and slid out a document. Police report. March 15th, 2022. Complaint of sexual harassment against a former employer. Signed, Maria Sanchez. Maria's mouth fell open. "That's a lie. I never filed that. I was already in custody in February." Sharon snatched the paper and read the date. "She's right," Sharon said, standing. "Maria was arrested on February 2nd. She's been behind bars ever since. This document is a forgery." Harrison stammered. "Must be an administrative error." "Or a cover-up," the judge said sharply. "You're suspended. Effective now. I'm referring this case to the state prosecutor's office." When Harrison stormed out, the room went silent. Judge White turned to Maria. "Softer now. They tried to fabricate evidence. That only strengthens your case." An hour later, Maria was moved to the secure unit, separated from general population for her own safety. The cell was larger, newer. It had a small TV, a separate shower, even a curtain. But freedom? Still out of reach. "Detective King will be here tomorrow," Sharon told her, bringing vitamins and a grilled cheese sandwich. "He's a good one. Old school. You can trust him." Maria tried to smile. "What about Coleman?" "Suspended. He's off-site. But be careful. A man like that with everything to lose, he's dangerous." Sharon nodded. "Exactly. But what no one knew, what no camera recorded, What no supervisor questioned was that Eugene Coleman had a key. Monday night, just after 10 p.m., Coleman used a security badge to enter through the service hallway. He knew the blind spots, the rotations, the guard breaks. Rodriguez, who manned the secure wing, always left for a 10-minute smoke at 10:15. Coleman had trained him. Maria was reading in bed when the door creaked open. She looked up and froze. Coleman stood in the doorway, not in uniform. Jeans, black gloves, a rope in his hand. Eugene, he shut the door behind him and locked it. You were supposed to keep your mouth shut. Maria stood slowly. You're not supposed to be here. I know. What do you want? He took a step forward to fix a mistake. Maria's hands trembled. She backed toward the call button, but Coleman was faster. He lunged, slamming her into the wall, his forearm across her throat. You ruined everything. My job, my wife, my life. You did that, she gasped. He threw her onto the bed and wrapped a rope around her neck. No one will believe a prisoner killed herself days before trial. He pulled tighter. Maria clawed at his hands, scratching, drawing blood. Please, the baby? You were going to get rid of it anyway. Her vision blurred. The last thing she saw was his face, ugly with hatred, shaking with rage. Then everything went dark. At 6:12 a.m., Guard Rodriguez returned to find Maria's body, hanging from a noose made of bed sheets. A note was on the table. I can't live with the lies anymore. When the news hit Sheriff Mitchell, she collapsed into a chair in the infirmary. No, she whispered. Not Maria. Chief Porter arrived at 7 o'clock. Looks like suicide. No, Sharon said. No way. She was pregnant. She was preparing to testify. She wanted to see her kids. Maybe that's why. Sharon knelt beside Maria's body. Her hands, her nails, tiny red streaks underneath. She struggled, Sharon whispered. She scratched. This isn't suicide. This is murder. Detective Robert King was in his office when the call came through. Female inmate, dead in her cell. Apparent suicide. He'd heard it before, too many times. But when the dispatcher added, name's Maria Sanchez, something inside him clicked. That name was already on his radar. He arrived at Palm Beach County Correctional Facility by 9:10 a.m., long coat flapping behind him, eyes sharp despite the Florida heat. He wasn't the kind of man to accept easy answers, and this case reeked a lie. What's the official story? He asked the temporary warden, Chief Porter. Suicide. Left a note. Said she couldn't live with the lies. Where's the body? Infirmary. King entered the room. Sharon Mitchell stood beside the gurney, her arms crossed tightly across her chest. She didn't do this, she said before King could speak. Why? She was pregnant. She was about to testify against Eugene Coleman. She had plans. She wasn't suicidal. King stepped closer to the body. He looked at the scratches on Maria's neck. Her knuckles. The blood caked under her fingernails. These don't look like self-inflicted wounds. No, Sharon said firmly. She fought. What about cameras? Conveniently, the system glitched last night. No footage after 10 p.m. King didn't say anything, but his jaw tightened. He turned to the officer beside him. I want logs. Every entrance. Every badge scan. I want a list of who entered this facility between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. When he returned to his car, he lit a cigarette he'd quit 5 years ago. Coleman. That name was circling like a vulture. He drove straight to the man's home in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Coleman's wife, Jennifer, opened the door, her face pale and tight. I need to speak with your husband. He's upstairs. Eugene Coleman came down, his face clean-shaven, his eyes wary. Detective, Maria Sanchez is dead. Coleman froze. Dead. Hanged herself last night. God, he whispered, hand over his mouth. That's terrible. You were suspended. Shouldn't have been near the facility. Can you tell me where you were last night? Home, he replied without hesitation. Sleeping. Mrs. Coleman? Can you confirm that? Jennifer hesitated. King caught it. Yes, she said finally. He was home all night. King nodded. Thank you for your time. Don't leave town. He walked to his car slowly. His gut was talking now, louder than facts. That pause in Jennifer's voice. The scripted response from Coleman. Something was wrong. Back at the station, King reviewed the badge logs. Coleman's ID hadn't been used. But then again, he didn't need it. He still had the keys. Later that evening, as he sifted through crime scene photos in his apartment, his phone rang. Detective King? Yes, it's Jennifer Coleman. I need to talk, but not on the phone. They met at a 24-hour diner off Old Dixie Highway. Jennifer sat in a booth in the back, her hands trembling around a coffee cup. I lied, she said. He wasn't home. King leaned in. Tell me. I woke up at 1 a.m. He wasn't there. I checked. The house was empty. The car was gone. He didn't come back until 4. What did he say? That he'd gone for a drive. Said he couldn't sleep. She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded note. I found this in his pocket. King opened it. I can't live with the lies anymore. The exact wording from Maria's suicide note. But this wasn't her handwriting. This is Eugene's writing? She nodded. I've seen it 100 times. King's mind moved quickly now. He had the scratches, the missing footage, the fake alibi, and now, fabricated evidence. Would you be willing to give a statement? I already wrote it down. King took the paper and read every word. The next morning, he went before a judge and secured a search warrant. He returned to Coleman's house with a full forensic team. In the garage, tucked behind boxes of Christmas lights, they found a bundle of fibers, the same type of prison sheet Maria had been hanged with under the UV light. Faint blood specks glowed on the car floorboard. By noon, King had what he needed. At 3:14 p.m., Eugene Coleman was arrested outside his home. You're under arrest for the murder of Maria Sanchez, King said, tightening the cuffs. Coleman didn't resist, but he didn't speak either. At the station, he sat across from King in the interrogation room, arms folded. I want a lawyer. You'll get one, but let me tell you what we have. Your wife's statement. Your handwriting on a fake suicide note. Fibers in your car. Scratch marks with your DNA. Coleman stared at the table, eyes hollow. I want a deal. King leaned forward. You tell me everything. Now. Coleman exhaled. I didn't mean to kill her. I wanted her to stay quiet. Start from the beginning. She came to me when she was in for burglary. She was desperate. I helped her, got her a job lined up, pushed her file for early release. And she got pregnant. She said it was mine. You believed her? Of course it was mine. But when she said she was going to testify, said she talked to the judge, I panicked. You had a key. I knew the rotation, the blind spots. I slipped in, tried to scare her, brought the rope to make a point. A point. She fought, scratched, screamed. I just wanted her to shut up. And the note, I wrote it before I left home, just in case. King turned off the tape recorder. Confession, felony murder. That's all I need. Coleman was silent. 3 days later, the news broke. A Florida correctional officer had been arrested for murdering a pregnant inmate days before she was due to testify against him. The state gasped. But for Maria Sanchez's children, still living with their grandmother in a tiny apartment in West Palm, it wasn't news. It was just the end of something they never wanted to begin. 3 months after Maria Sanchez was murdered in her prison cell, the trial of Eugene Coleman began in a packed courtroom in Palm Beach County. The air was heavy with silence as jury selection ended and opening arguments began. Prosecutor Patricia Martinez, a woman known for her calm but devastating delivery, stood before the jury. This is not just about a correctional officer who broke the law, she began. This is about a man who used his power and his badge to coerce, to threaten, and finally, to kill. Maria Sanchez was an inmate, yes, but she was also a mother, a woman, a human being. She deserved justice. The defense attorney, Robert Finch, countered with a quieter, more careful narrative. My client admits responsibility, but not in the way the prosecution claims. He did not plan this. He did not set out to kill anyone. What happened that night was a tragic loss of control, a moment of weakness, not premeditation. It was a weak argument. Everyone in the room could feel it. The first to testify was Sharon Mitchell. The courtroom fell silent as she described Maria's final weeks, the fear in her eyes, the bruises she had seen, the conversation in the medical office after Maria revealed she was pregnant. She was terrified, Sharon said, voice steady, not just of what he might do, but of what the system wouldn't do to protect her. And she had every reason to be afraid. Next came Jennifer Coleman. She wore a navy blue dress and didn't look at her husband once. Her voice trembled, but her words were clear. He wasn't home that night, she said. I found the suicide note in his jacket pocket the next morning. It wasn't hers. I know my husband's handwriting. Did he ever tell you where he went? He said he went for a drive. But he came home at 4 a.m. covered in sweat, and he went straight to the shower. The prosecution played the tape of Eugene Coleman's confession for the jury. His voice echoed across the courtroom. I brought the rope to scare her. She fought. I just wanted her to stop screaming. I wrote the note before I left. The audio played like a slow descent into evil, each word damning, each sentence undeniable. Then came the forensic experts. Fibers from a prison-issued bedsheets were found in the trunk of Coleman's car. Skin and blood under Maria's fingernails matched his DNA. The suicide note matched Coleman's handwriting, not Maria's. The injuries on her neck, the medical examiner testified, are consistent with manual strangulation followed by staging of a hanging. This was not suicide, but it was Rosa Valencia who made the courtroom weep, an elderly inmate. Rosa had shared meals and prayers with Maria. That girl talked about her babies every single day, Rosa said through tears. She had their drawings taped to the wall. She was counting down the days until she could hug them again. Did she seem depressed to you? The prosecutor asked. Depressed? No. Determined, yes. She was scared of Coleman, but she was more scared of staying silent. She was ready to fight for her freedom, for her children. When it was the defense's turn, Eugene Coleman took the stand. He tried to present himself as remorseful, a broken man who had made a terrible mistake. I know what I did was wrong, he said. I just lost control. I didn't go there to kill her. But during cross-examination, the illusion shattered. Mr. Coleman, Patricia Martinez said, her tone flat. Did you bring a rope with you that night? Yes. Did you turn off the surveillance camera system? Yes. Did you write a fake suicide note in advance? Yes. Then help us understand. What exactly about this wasn't premeditated? Coleman had no answer. He looked down. He never looked up again. In her closing statement, Martinez spoke without notes, her voice calm and devastating. Maria Sanchez was not perfect. She made mistakes. She paid her price. But she was not a liar. She was not disposable. She was a woman who was used, threatened, and ultimately murdered by the man who was supposed to protect the institution she lived in. She didn't kill herself. She was silenced. The jury deliberated for 2 days. On the afternoon of the third day, they returned with a unanimous verdict. Guilty of first-degree murder. Judge Melissa White, the same judge who had once received the emergency call from Sharon Mitchell, presided over sentencing. You betrayed your oath, she said to Coleman. You turned your position of power into a weapon. You took advantage of a vulnerable woman and ended her life when she no longer served your purpose. For this, you will spend the rest of your life behind bars. Life without the possibility of parole. There was no reaction from Coleman, but in the gallery, Jennifer Coleman wept softly. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited, but Sharon Mitchell and Detective King didn't speak to them. Instead, they stood side by side in silence, both gazing at the courthouse steps. She didn't die for nothing, Sharon said quietly. No, King replied, she didn't. A few weeks later, a plaque was installed in the medical wing of the correctional facility. It read, "In memory of Maria Sanchez, a mother, a fighter, a woman who told the truth." An internal audit followed. Over a dozen officers across the state were suspended for inappropriate relationships with inmates. New regulations were passed. Surveillance systems were upgraded. A whistleblower hotline was created for inmates and staff alike. Shara Mitchell now works in Washington, D.C., helping shape prison reform policies at the federal level. She still keeps a photo of Maria taped inside her desk drawer. Detective Robert King was promoted to lead the Government Crimes Division. He's quiet about the case, but those closest to him say it changed him forever. As for Maria's children, they live with their grandmother in a small home in West Palm Beach. A trust fund was established in their mother's name, and it continues to receive donations from across the country. They are growing up knowing that their mother tried to do the right thing, and that someone listened, even if it was too late. If this story moved you, don't let Maria's voice be forgotten. Subscribe to the Family Crime Exposed for more stories where silence is shattered and justice is pursued. Like this video if you believe no one, no matter where they are, should be denied their dignity. Comment below with your thoughts. Should prison abuse be considered a federal crime? And remember, every view, every share helps expose the hidden crimes that institutions want buried. Let's keep telling the stories they try to silence.